All right, 33ers, how you doing? I got this warm sweater from Old Navy a couple weeks ago because it was got freaking cold, but the cold snap seems to be over now, but still find this comfortable. Anyway, back around New Year's, I did a video with my wife called the 10 Album Challenge, where she picked 10 records randomly from my shelves. I pulled them, talked about them, and if I hadn't listened to them in over a year, I would listen to them and report back. So that's what I'm doing today. Big shout out to all of you who also participated in the 10 album challenge. If I missed any of your videos, let me know in the comments because I would love to check them out. Now let's get to the music. All right, this first one, Black Sabbath, Born Again. This is kind of a controversial Black Sabbath album for a couple of reasons. A lot of people say this is the ugliest album cover art of all time. A lot of people, including band members themselves, despise the mix. It does sound really muddy. And this was the one and only Black Sabbath album featuring Ian Gillan from Deep Purple on lead vocals. I don't think I had listened to this album in the past year. Maybe I had. I don't know. I've always kind of dug this album. I remember being a kid going to the record stores and seeing this on the shelves, and I couldn't afford it, and always just being fascinated by it. Yes, the mix is muddy. Apparently Tony Iommi is remixing it, and a new version with a new mix is going to be coming out shortly. I do look forward to that. Trashed, the lead-off song on here has always been one of my favorite songs on this record. Absolutely love it. What else did I dig on here? Zero the Hero, of course. There's lots of forgettable stuff here as well. You know, someone asked me to recall the song Born Again. I probably couldn't. So, you know, I can see maybe why I don't give this a lot of spins, but the strong tracks on here are very strong, and I'm super curious to hear that remix coming out. What else? Okay, I got this Guess Who album. It is called, I don't even know what it's called, man. It's called Power in the Music. So the Guess Who are from my hometown. They're local legends here. It's kind of funny, the band has, I mean, there's no original members really left, and Rudy Sarzo from Quiet Riot was playing bass for him for a while. It's gone kind of bananas. This was the last album, I believe, featuring Burton Cummings. It's not as bad as I expected. My favorite track, it's actually a really good track, When the Band Was Singing Shaking All Over. I really do dig that one. I'm looking here occasionally because I made notes while I was listening to these records, so they're up on my screen. This is the first album the featured guitarist Dominic Troiano. He's an Italian-Canadian. He also played with the James Gang. When he was in the James Gang, he replaced Joe Walsh. He grew up in Toronto and was the first member of the Guess Who did not hail from Winnipeg, my hometown. So thought that was pretty interesting. He was more of like a jazz rock guitarist, and I guess Burton Cummings didn't really dig that jazz rock sound. This album came out in 1975. The Guess Who broke up later that year. They're still around, kind of. There's no original members, really, and they're being sued by Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman to call them a cover band, and they're being accused of misleading people think they're actually the Guess Who. It's a big mess, man. It's a big mess. But I do dig the classic Guess Who stuff. Is this one classic? Not really, but I'm glad I checked it out. Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush. Mahogany Rush live. Man, I can never say enough good things about Frank Marino. He is one of the most underrated guitarist. He was a big inspiration to Zakk Wylde. If you're a guitar player or a fan of kind of guitar rock, you got to check out Frank Marino. Back in the day, they called him the reincarnation of Jimi Hendrix. It's kind of like that rock, blues, psychedelic, that kind of stuff. This is a live record. My only complaint was it's too short. It's a single LP set. There's a lot of covers on here too. There were covers of Johnny B. Good, Purple Haze, Backdoor Man, plus a ton of originals. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Frank Marino. It's not my favorite Mahogany Rush album, but it's definitely a good one. I think their stuff is hard to find on the streaming services. I don't know. I got to check that out. But if you're curious at all, man, if I hear good 1970s, late 70s guitar rock, check this guy out. I mean, Mahogany Rush was really big for a while, and they kind of just disappeared. Frank Marino wasn't a fan of the spotlight, but he's still around, and he still occasionally does put out music. Great album, great guitarist. Gotta check it out. Next up, Kiss Revenge. Again, I think I probably have heard this in the past year, but then again, maybe not. I don't know. This is one of my favorite Kiss albums, probably, at least one of my favorites in the non-makeup era. It's Kiss trying to be badass and tough, right? Look at the back picture of them. They're looking in their black leather. They don't mess with us. Trying to be a bit edgy here, right? For this album, they brought back producer Bob Ezrin. Bob Ezrin had previously produced Kiss Destroyer, one of Kiss's biggest albums, and also produced The Elder, one of Kiss's biggest flops. Gene's dark demon persona comes back on Holy. That is a great track. Take It Off, Paul. That's a Paul song. That's definitely a product of its time. It's Paul's tribute to strip bars. I wrote in my notes here, it's a good song, but in terms of Paul's overtly sexual songs, I prefer You Make Me Rock Hard and Let's Put the X in Sex. Spit is fun. I like the guitar tones. I like that you can hear Gene's bass up front on a lot of tracks. I like the drum sound. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a drier sounding production than their 1980 stuff, but overall, good record, man. I'm going at these at a quick pace because I could do like a 20-minute video talking about 10 records, but this is another one on my list. This is Killer Dwarfs, Big Deal. And I've said this in previous videos, but I think Killer Dwarfs are definitely one of the most underrated bands from the era, right? 80s. And their album Dirty Weapons is one of my favorite hard rock albums from that era. This one's not bad. This one's called Big Deal, and I hadn't listened to this one in a while. Found a Value Village price tag on here, and Value Village is a for-profit thrift store. It's known as Savers in the US. And I totally forgot about this, but it's also a gold stamp promo, right? Back in the day, they would send promotional copies of records to DJs, to reviewers, that kind of stuff, and so those people couldn't resell them. They would stamp them with these gold stamps, and the gold stamps usually say property of the record label. Yeah, this one says copy on loan only remains property of CBS Records. So Killer Dwarfs is a good band, man. They're from Toronto, Canada. I always thought they should have been bigger, but what I think held the Killer Dwarfs back was their goofy image. Right? They're kind of goofy. It's like with Cheap Trick. I always thought Cheap Trick should have been huge. Their songs were there, but they're a little bit goofy. And I think that held them back. I remember being a kid thinking, I can't get into Cheap Trick, man. They're just too weird. Which is unfortunate, because I do dig Cheap Trick now. And that might have been a case with the Killer Dwarfs. After this, on Dirty Weapons, they kind of got a little more serious, but they're still... Even to this day, I saw them a few years back, even to this day, they kind of do goofy stuff on stage, like the singer rides a tricycle around, that kind of stuff. It is what it is, man. My favorite tracks on here, where's the track listing? The lead track, Tell Me Please, is great. We Stand Alone, the single was great. I don't like when they do, like, it's hard to read the song titles. Maybe I'll look on the lyric sheet. Union of Pride. That was the other one I dug. So, if you're not familiar with the Killer Dwarfs, man, they, as I said, they should have been huge. The songs were there. The band was tight. They were like, it was the right songs for the right era. Just for whatever reason, it didn't work. But I do dig the Killer Dwarfs. Interesting. AC/DC, Fly on the Wall. And I was going to say, I think this album splits fans, but maybe not. Maybe more fans side on not liking this record. I don't know. It's definitely not one of the more popular AC/DC records. I hadn't listened to this for a while, and I recall it being quite hit and miss, and that was still my impression when I listened back to it. This was Simon Wright was on drums here. He replaced Phil Rudd. Phil Rudd is one of my favorite drummers of all time, man. That guy is cool as ice, in the pocket, such good groove. I love Phil Rudd, so it's kind of sad to see him gone on this record, and Simon Wright on here. The mix. This record is often criticized for its poor mix, and the vocals really low in the mix. Guitars really high, so it should be no surprise that the record was produced by Angus and Malcolm, the two guitar players. In terms of the tracks, I dig Shake Your Foundations, total fist pumper, total banger. Found myself cranking that one up. Some good riffs and good grooves throughout the records. I dug First Blood, and I didn't remember that track at all. Sink the Pink is killer. Love that riff. So simple, but so good. You know, again, back to Brian Johnson's vocals. They're low in the mix, and they sound strained. They sound raspier. Also, a lot of forgettable clunkers on here. I gotta say that. Hell or High Water, Back in Business. It just sounds like generic hard rock. You know, when you're watching a movie and the script calls for generic hard rock music in the background, there's a lot of that kind of stuff on this record. In my opinion, you know, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's totally cool. Our differences are what makes us more interesting, right? Silly lyrics. I miss when Bon Scott used to write lyrics, and then when Brian Johnson used to write lyrics, and at some point Malcolm and Angus took over all of that, and I think something was really missed when they no longer allowed the vocalist to do the vocals. But it is what it is, man. I mean, this is not the worst album of all time. It's something ongoing I'll probably listen to like maybe once a year, that kind of stuff. But I can also see why I hadn't heard this record in a while, because it's this and Flick of the Switch and Blow Up Your Video. Those are kind of the forgotten AC/DC records. Led Zeppelin, In Through the Outdoor. Not my favorite Led Zeppelin album, and I can see why. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's Zeppelin. Any Led Zeppelin is good Zeppelin, right? But didn't really, this album doesn't really do it for me. All My Love, I mean, that's a classic one, I guess, right? But, you know, if I'm going to listen to Zeppelin, I'm not going to put on Into the Outdoor. I'm not going to put on Presence. Those just aren't my jams. Led Zeppelin 1. I love Led Zeppelin 1. House of the Holy. There's so much good stuff. But yeah, glad I listened to this one again. I don't know why I hadn't listened to this record in a while, because it is so freaking good. This is Extreme Live in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock in Las Vegas. Porno Graffiti Live 25. So this is the band playing Porno Graffiti from beginning to end. And I'm such a big Nuno Bettencourt fan. One of the best living guitarists playing in a hard rock band today. So good, man. So good. I mean, either you like Porno Graffiti or you don't like it, but it's one of those albums where there's kind of something there for everyone, right? Like Decadence Dance, kind of a more rockin' song. Get the Funk Out, that's kind of rock/funk. What was the ballad on here? There's Wholehearted, and there was When I First Kissed You. That's kind of like a Frank Sinatra kind of song. My only complaint about this record is that Nuno's guitar is a little too low in the mix for my liking. I mean, the guy's a guitar god. Crank him up a bit. But yeah, besides that, this is an awesome album. And I saw the Blu-ray on Amazon pretty cheap, so I am thinking about picking that one up. Extreme. So good, man. So good. This is one I just spun today. It took me a while to get through all of these records, but this is Bruce Dickinson, All the Young Dudes. This is a UK, I guess you call it a maxi single or something. I'm not sure. It's a 12-inch record featuring 3 tracks. And here in Canada, back in the day, we never had these, but I understand they were big. This format was big and popular in the UK up until the early 90s. I know I have several releases from several bands. And they put a lot of work into this packaging for something that only featured 3 tracks. Anyway, the tracks are All the Young Dudes. That was written by David Bowie. Darkness, Be My Friend. I wasn't familiar with that one, but I think that's a Bruce Dickinson song, and a cover also of AC/DC's Sin City. All the Young Dudes was a single Bruce had put out at the time. It was on his Tattooed Millionaire record. Again, as I said, I never heard of Darkness, Be My Friend, and Sin City. I'm not sure if I really dug Bruce's version of it, but his version of All the Young Dudes is good. This is a record I'm probably not going to listen to a ton, but the format is just so cool. It's one of those records I'm going to keep in my collection because I dig it. Dig the format. Songs are not bad. So this got me thinking, what did I learn from doing the 10 album or the 10 record challenge, I guess one of the things I learned is that there still is some fat in my collection. There's some of the stuff I'm probably not going to listen to again for a while, but I also realized it's okay to have records in my collection that I don't listen to all the time. It's okay to have a music library of records that maybe you'll only listen to like once every year, once every 2 years, once every 5 years, but there's something to be said just for knowing you have that and for having it on your shelf. That said, as I said, I know that there is some fat in my collection, so again, I might go through the process here in the coming months, probably sell some of my records. It just takes time going through them and pricing and grading and putting them for sale. I'm not a big fan of that, but I know there's some fat I could trim. And, it's not a bad thing. I do these purges regularly. And you take the money you make by selling records and you're reinvesting in your collection. Someone hopefully gets your records that you don't listen to a lot and they appreciate them. They go to a new home and get a whole new life and you get more stuff that you may dig. So that's my philosophy on it. Anyway, the 10 album challenge was a lot of fun. If you still want to do it and if you end up posting a video, shoot me a link because I would like to check it out. All right, 33ers, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of these videos in the comments below. I'll be back again in a couple of days. I hope to see you then. Until then, keep on spinning.